My name is George Galloway, presenter of كلمة on Al Mayadeen television. Morning to you. I don't mince my words. I speak كلمة and my audience does too. كلمة free word, free for me, free for you. Catch it. Nice to meet you, fella. Welcome to كلمة with me, George Galloway, for Al Mayadeen television, coming from London, talking about Germany and indeed the European continent as a whole. Germany, the most powerful country in Europe, the biggest economy in Europe, is in desperate trouble. So desperate, the Chancellor had to scurry to China to try and rescue their relationship with at least one of the United States' main adversaries. Not only was its vital infrastructure, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, blown up, most probably by Britain and the United States of America, but the people of Germany are currently scouring the woods, cutting down trees for the fuel to keep warm. It is also true that Germany is losing its factories. Some, like BASF, have literally unbolted from the floor and shipped to China. Others are shipping to the United States. Indeed, Germans, never mind their factories, are applying for green cards in their droves as their industries relocate to places where fuel, energy, is at least in some kind of supply. The proximate reason is that Germany was more dependent than anywhere else in Europe on Russia for its energy. 50% of its energy coming from the now severely sanctioned neighbour to its east. But that's not Germany's only problem. It has an exceedingly large population of former refugees and asylum seekers and other kinds of migrants who are now forming pockets of the unemployed and are increasingly scapegoats from German citizens for the levels of unemployment, underemployment, and job insecurity that exist there. Germany, formerly the banker for the poorer parts of Europe, is now having to tighten its belt, formerly in recession. It also has a banking sector at very grave risk of collapse. Deutsche Bank in particular is one that most watchers are watching for signs that it will be the first banking domino to fall in the next round of banking collapses, having not fully recovered from that of 2008. Germany has a minority government, led by little soldier Schulz, as I call him, who is entirely dependent on a Green Party, which is simultaneously savage for war, which you might think is slightly damaging for the environment, and also mad for greenery and quackery and wokery of all kinds, which is increasingly alienating the mass of the German population. The stability that Angela Merkel brought to Germany over so many years seems like a distant memory now. But of course, when Germany sneezes, the rest of Europe catches influenza, and so any collapse in Germany is likely to see them tumbling elsewhere on the European continent, including Britain, which is not in the European Union, but definitely still vitally affected by events there. As always, I'm joined by a group of distinguished experts. I and merely the enthusiastic. Let's hear from a German then. J. Michael Seyfert is a German, but living in Mexico, having previously lived in the United States. He is an ethnographic journalist and an eminent documentary filmmaker. Thanks for joining us, friend.
Okay, my pleasure.
Why is Germany suffering the most from the sanctions placed on Russia? I characterized it in the old Chinese saying of struggling to lift a huge stone only to drop it on our own feet. And the Germans are the big toe. And boy, they are hurting, aren't they?
Well, I think first we have to describe how Germany is constructed as an industrial nation. Everybody says, well, it's an export nation and what have you. But essentially, Germany is a conglomerate of thousands of small family businesses. Family business in the sense that they may have 50 employees, but they're still in some village with a factory producing precision products or valuable goods, which are largely reliant on export. German industry, besides Volkswagen and Siemens and Bayer and these kind of guys, doesn't really rely on Wall Street or credit as such. It's a productive powerhouse, where if you have a financial crisis in the United States, there's like a imminent collapse at some point because banks would fall down and America would fall down. Germany doesn't work that way. The sanctions that are imposed at this point affect not only the energy sector and the labor market and the export potential and machine that Germany represents, it affects the household of the very same Germans that represent the industry. Because it's not a workers' country as such, it's a country of small businesses. I mean, literally thousands and thousands of business in every village. Think about it, they have 6,000 different beers. These are companies that make, I don't know, 1 million bottles of beer, but they don't export to the entire planet. They produce and produce and produce. Today, the sanctions have basically put this giant brick into the bicycle, because you can't have 10% inflation and sanctions that restrict people are paying 10 times as much for energy as they used to. A baker, a butcher, a machine builder, that just doesn't work.
I mean, Europe is paying the price, but Germany, the highest price of all. German factories are literally being unbolted and shipped out of the country. Germans are queuing for green cards in the United States. Do you accept that that's the fate of Germany in 2022?
Right. I think that's unfortunately what we have to make of this. Because, I mean, in the late 90s, famously, the Chancellor Gerhard Schröder was a social democrat. He did the Trumpian kind of approach to running politics. He took an airplane, like the German Air Force One, so to speak. He put 50, 60 of the top industry executives into it. Then he flew to Saudi Arabia, to China, and all over the world to make deals, right? And Germany enjoyed a boom because the approach was practical. We're an export powerhouse. We produce really good stuff, and not just dental floss. I mean, they make high precision machinery. And he went to sell it to everybody, and everybody bought it.
How did a people, the Germans, known everywhere as rational and productive people, agree to a series of actions which have become entirely irrational from the point of view of Germany's national interest and economically ruinous?
Well, I don't think Germans are doing it. And I don't even think it's so much of an economic crisis, as we would call it, because if you look around what the government is actually doing, they're building $1 billion project in Berlin to house the new German government, whenever that is, or whoever that will be. If they can do $1 billion for the infrastructure, for the political and administrative purposes, they got money, and they got plans. But the plans don't really include the German people as such. I think they're being deindustrialized in a way, not because of AI and automation, but because they're just simply a lot of useless eaters, as they call them. Yeah. So we have these millions of non-essential Germans who they're going to be phased out. So it's not the German people participating in any of this. It's a self-destruction. That would make no sense. But like you and I can talk on a Zoom call. If you were a teacher, you could talk to 80,000 pupils, and you don't need 80,000 teachers or 10,000 teachers for that. One guy can teach 80,000 kids. So technology is totally replacing something that happened in Germany in 1848. You had industrialization taking over, and it became an economic crisis. Yeah. They've had crises for 170 years. That's part of the franchise. Our brand is crisis kind of franchise, no? And so the government keeps doing that, except at this point, it is completely contrary to any meaningful outcome. Because you can't take in 5 million refugees, or how many, 4 million from Syria and the Middle East, and millions from Ukraine. No? You can't do that. They're not going to go home, right? They are going to have to integrate and work for relatively lower wages. They're going to replace half the German workforce, in a sense, over the next few years. What are these people going to do? They're telling German pensioners to go to Greece where the sun shines, because they can't afford on their pension to live in Germany. They're going to freeze to death. At the same time, the United States is bringing in command centers to do its planning that completely excludes Germany as such. Because I don't think Germany benefits from the Arctic Circle, the trade routes to China, that kind of stuff. That's all an American benefit, So there's a bigger picture that I see, which is sort of Arctic focused. And for that, we're going to burn down Ukraine and dismantle Germany, because it doesn't really matter to the bigger technocratic world government, whatever you want to call it. No? So I think the German people is completely excluded from this.
Germany is an independent country of some considerable importance. Why should Germany be told what to do by the United States?
Well, to top it off, my last comment would be that, you've heard the German term for somebody who looks at Putin as a realistically intelligent person. They call him the Putin Versteher, which the person who understands Putin, that's a total no-no. It's like you're a sympathizer. Yeah, if you because you can't possibly acquire or reach any kind of peace if you don't know what the other guy wants or what they're thinking. The irony in all of this is that you have a very intelligent politician in Putin, who's eloquent and charismatic, and he can talk all day. Yeah, you try to find a guy like this in Germany or in the United States. That's just not possible. We got script reading prompter morons who just read. Yeah, the German foreign minister, she can't even speak English. Baerbock, yeah, the lady, she's a green politician, pro-war, radical person. It comes out of nowhere, doesn't seem to have any particular qualifications other than World Economic Forum backgrounds and training. And there she is talking all kinds of nonsense. We were in the streets in the 70s as school kids. They mobilized us against atomic power, nuclear power. In 1974, I remember standing at a bus station with the sign of a sun that was smiling and says, "Atomic power, no thank you." Those green people mobilized us at that time, because we are impressionable kids. And now it's the same people and their kids, who are running the show saying, let's go to war, let's send more weapons, open the coal mines. These guys, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's just amazing.
It may be the greatest act of self-harm in international political and economic history. We'll be discussing it further after the break. Stay tuned.